So I spent literally the majority of my life with poor people. And I don't say that to say kind of like, oh my gosh, I have some money now, I'm spoiled. No, no, it's true. Like my family is poor, my friends were poor, most of the people around me were poor. I grew up in a poor neighborhood, third world country, things were not really that well. And I learned a lot of poor habits. I also learned a lot of good things, but when you don't know the difference, it's hard to take the good and leave the bad. Now today, 6 to 7 years of trying to become financially free, learning, educating myself, becoming financially literate, I know the good habits, I know the bad habits, and I know how to tell them apart, and I know how to take the good and leave the bad, okay? So in this video, the other day, I spent 24 hours with some of my family members that till this day, they're still poor. And I just wanted to see exactly, it was like a family event, and I said I was gonna go, so I went, and I basically stayed there the whole day. We hanged out, we talked, and I was able to take the good and basically leave the bad. And this video is obviously a financial channel, so I'm gonna tell you exactly what are 10 things, 10 ideas, 10 ways of thinking that I basically said, hey, this is terrible. And not just them think this way, but a lot of people think this way. And I wanna make sure in this video, I clarify these ideas for you, so this way you don't go ahead and commit these same mistakes over and over again. And as always, guys, like this video, on top of also subscribe and hit the bell so you get notified. And by the way, poor people have some good habits, rich people have some bad habits. People are people. But at the end of the day, when it comes to money, most likely the rich person is going to have better money habits than the poor person, unless they're basically inherited the wealth. But most wealth in America is first generation and it's also not inherited, okay? So the very first thing, guys, is I had a conversation with this person and he tells me, Tommy, the last time I almost won, I got 4 numbers. And I was like, what are you talking about? And he said, I'm talking about the lottery. I play the lottery all the time and I'm this close to winning it. And this is the idea of, for example, you're spending your money on things that don't make any sense. And I asked him, right? I was like, why do you play the lottery? And how much money do you actually want to have? What are your goals? And the answer was, I don't really know how much money I want to have to not have to work anymore. But I do know what I really do want is to have a home. I want to have a family and I want to feel financially secured. And when you hear that, right, those goals sound very concrete. They sound very good. They're not bad goals, but overall, you don't have an exact number. You don't have a plan. And failing to plan is basically planning to fail overall. And when you put, for example, all your dreams and all your hopes in a 1 in a million or 1 in 10 million chance is usually not gonna be a good investment. And by the way, in America, most of the money spent on lottery tickets are by poor people. And that's why I tell you, lottery ticket stuff, erase it from your memory. If you want to spend money on it, just make sure it's not a lot of money. And if you don't have any money, don't spend any money on it, okay? Spend money raising your income and increasing it and learning how to do more things. That's the first thing I realized that I did not like. Now, number 2 was renting or living with your parents. And by the way, most people know exactly what the right answer is. It's just hard to actually do what the right thing is sometimes, okay? So he told me, Tommy, I rent here. It's a nice place, but I don't want to stay here forever because long term, this is going to be a very bad idea. I want to be able to own my own home and eventually I want to do that. And then I was like, well, what's your plan? The plan was I don't have a plan. For right now, this is all I have. And I said, well, you earn money. That's a good thing. You have earning power. That's a great thing. Why don't you put some money aside to buy something? And the answer was, I'm planning to do that, but there is no firm concrete conviction that he's actually going to do that. And you know, I don't know about you guys, okay, but especially for example in Hispanic families, just being honest, okay, because I'm Hispanic, we tend to live with our parents longer than we usually should. So I have family members that are basically like in their 30s. I'm talking about like over 35 years old, and they have kids and they still live at their mom's house. And it's basically out of convenience. Like, why would I leave when I can just live here, have somebody cook for me, wash my clothes, or maybe I'll wash my own clothes or whatever, I'll put some money there, but I don't want to spend money on rent. The answer is, at a certain point, you have to be able to leave the bird's nest. And it's not like you're 18, you do it. It's more like when you feel like you're solid, When you feel like you can actually just like take the risk, then you can kind of like go ahead and do it. But that idea, renting for a long time, long term, is probably pretty stupid. Staying with your parents for a very, very long time is probably pretty lazy. So it's all about like using common sense. If it makes sense to buy a property, start planning on how you're gonna do it, whether you can or you can't. If you're living with your parents, like you're past like 40 or 30, probably not a good sign. And if you're not sick or disabled, right, most likely, then it's probably not a good idea to keep staying there and leashing off your parents. Now, number 3 is buying liabilities. And one of these people, what they went ahead and did was, the goal was, I just want to own a car. I want to have a chain. I want to have some clothes. I want to be able to buy some expensive alcohol. I want to be able to wear expensive cologne. And you ask them, do you have any money? The answer is usually no. But they have all these things, and they don't realize that these things keep them from having what they actually want, which is just a home, a family, and some security. And when you spend all your money on these wants overall, it keeps you from your actual internal wants, if that makes sense, what you actually need. And that's not what you want to do. Okay, so my point is, know what a need is, know what a want is, and know what delayed gratification basically means. I know people with cars that can't afford them, and it's like you get what you think you want, and then you no longer want it because you realize how expensive it is, especially when you can't actually afford to have it. It's better to wait a little longer. My cousin always said that, Tommy, just be a little more patient, and when it comes, you'll stay. But it's better to wait a little longer, so when it comes to stays, then you actually get it today, and then it leaves very quickly because you can't afford to actually have it. Now, number 4 is going to be consuming trash. I was a pretty dumb guy, guys, okay? And I'm being honest because that's what you got to be in life. You got to be honest. I was a pretty dumb guy. I did not know much about money. I had bad money habits, and all I knew how to do was basically spend money or save money. And whenever I saved money, I would spend all of it because I didn't know what to do next with the money, okay? It's that simple. So the way I got a little smarter when it came to money was not overnight. It happened with little podcasts, little YouTube videos, happened with Google, happened with, for example, books and so on. It was like a process, okay? So one lesson I learned along the way is that trash equals trash. If you consume trash, you get trash. So on the way back from this day, I was like, why not put on some positive music? Why not put on a podcast? Why not put on a book? Why not put on some entertainment that actually helps in some way? And the answer was no. Let's listen to this podcast about this guy who didn't have much, and now he has a lot, and nobody knows how he got it. It's a rap star, and there's no value there. Not to say like there's no value in listening to a rap star, but to say like in that exact interview, I knew there was no value there. So that's my point. So if you consume trash, you get trash. If you consume good things, you get good things, usually. It's like if you don't know something, go search for it and try to figure out exactly what you don't know, so that way you can actually have a better understanding. Now, number 5, guys, is going to be worried about money and not worried about service. One quote I kept hearing was, if I had just a little bit more money, I would be doing just fine. And I always remember this whole example. It's like if you're a farmer and you used to plant, for example, one crop, right, for the entire year, and you could live with that one crop, your whole family and you, and everything was fine. Now you're able to have some more land, you do 2 crops, right? And you're like, well, now I'm going to consume absolutely everything. And you see yourself getting fat, unhealthy, right? Because most likely you're consuming more than you actually need. It's just like the body telling you, hey, you're doing too much. Like, just relax, okay? My point is, people tend to have a salary, live just fine with that, and then they go ahead and earn more money, and now they consume all of that. And they think that the answer is going to be, the more money I get, then I'm going to be a little bit better. But the answer is, as long as you keep raising your expenses to the level of your income, you're never going to be okay. So the answer is always going to be frugal, spend less than you make, and that's where true wealth starts to begin and starts to spring, okay? That's the core thing when it comes to building wealth. You can't build wealth without any extra income, because without any extra income, you don't have capital. Without any capital, you can't actually do anything. That's the answer. And by the way, when I say service, I mean, for example, if all you do is focus on money in a capitalist system, service is king. So the more service you provide, the more people you help. My job is not money. My job is to understand things and help explain them so people can basically understand them. It's that simple, right? So if I focus on helping as many people as I can, I will make more money, because that's the whole society economics that we basically apply when it comes to, for example, capitalism. Okay, it's that simple. So if you want more money, figure out a way to serve more people. That's the whole idea. Now, number 6 is not seeing the law of spending and earning. I just went over it overall, but that's it's as simple as, for example, if you earn X, always spend a little bit less. It gives you money for savings, investing, and everything else. Okay, so number 7 is having romantic disasters. A lot of romantic disasters. Okay, you know, I know people that marry people for interest. You know, they get married not for love, not because I like you, not because of anything. They get married because I see an opportunity. I've seen that a lot. I've seen people get used. I see people go into relationships not because it's lust and a bunch of things that actually don't make that much sense. And one of the most important things ever when it comes to financial and all that stuff, and also life and being happy, is the person you choose to marry. And I want to say choose because it is a choice, right? You choose most of the time, okay, depending on your culture. But you choose who you're actually going to marry. And the person you marry, you're going to spend the most time with. If you marry a person that's a princess, most likely you're going to have princess expenses and a princess lifestyle. You probably will not be able to save or invest, right? So if you marry somebody that's actually frugal and cares about this and that and about health or whatever, you're probably going to be a lot better off. So the answer is be careful where you look, right, for a wife or for a husband. And being in that whole circle for 24 hours with a bunch of guys, I was just like, wow, okay, that's pretty cool stuff, but I'm not interested in that type of lifestyle whatsoever, especially because I'm a Christian. Okay, so I'm not really interested in the whole like woo woo, you know what I mean? So number 8, procrastination on opportunities that don't knock that often. When you're poor, you don't get that many opportunities that often. It's just a fact. When you tend to be wealthy because you have more capital, you tend to have a lot more things you're actually able to do. But it's not like you're poor, you have nothing. It's like you're poor, you have less, and you have to be a little more creative. That's the answer, right? So I see people, by the way, one of the most powerful gifts on this earth is knowing when the good times are going to stop. So I know someone, for example, that has a job that's based on time. So they're going to have this job for like the next year or so. And I say, hey, you have one more year to squeeze the juice out of this job, to go hammer, to go all the way out, to get everything you can out of it. And at least you know exactly when it ends. Because if you don't know when it ends, it happens abruptly, then it's done, right? So take advantage of all of your opportunities that come across and don't procrastinate, because procrastination is crazy. And by the way, I procrastinate a lot. I try to stop and it's hard, but the answer is you got to get better at it. So that's my advice there. Now, number 9 is expectations. You have a lot, so why not share it with us? You know, one question I rarely ever get is, Tommy, how did you get what you have? And how can I get what you have? Like, how do I learn that? You know, there's a story in the Bible, I think it's Elijah and Elisha. And Elisha tells Elijah, like, all I want is double of what you have. That's what I want. That's all I have. I want double of what you have, you know? And that's amazing, because when you ask for that, and the Bible, I think the Bible also says this, or for example, it's like one of those things that people say it's in the Bible, it's not really in the Bible. And it's like basically, if you teach a man to fish, he'll eat for a lifetime. I think it's actually a Chinese proverb, actually. I don't think it's in the Bible. And if you give a man a fish, he eats for a day. But some people, all they want is the fish. They don't want you to teach them anything. Just give me the fish and leave me alone. And for those people, life is going to be extremely hard when the fish stops coming. So my advice is always, if you know someone that has something that you want, ask them, how the heck did you get it? How can I get it? How can I learn? What can I do to actually accomplish that? Because once you know and you have the knowledge, you're able to repeat it as many times as you want. But if you depend on that person to give you something, then you're dependent on it, but you don't actually know how to get it yourself. Okay, that's one thing I learned early on. I have the person I look up to the most when it comes to finances is probably like my uncle, and he has a lot of stuff, right? But I've never came across the idea, you know what I want? I want my uncle to give me everything he has, because he's my family, and he should be able to just give me what he has because we're blood, right? I don't think that way. All my questions are always like, how do you do that? Like, how do I learn to do that? And I think that's why we're so close, because there's no interest in me having what he has. There's just interest in me basically him teaching me what he knows, so that way I can get my own, you know what I mean? So that's super important. Now, number 10 here is poor life habits. You know, one of the most honest things on this planet is your reflection, is your results, is where you are in life right now. So I remember I read a book, Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins, and he had this whole thing, it's called the mirror test. And he said, just look in the mirror You know, what does this mirror tell you? If it shows you that you're fat, then this is the truth. Look at your life. Is your life not going that well? Then that's probably like what's going on. So it's being harsh, kind of, but it's just really being honest, you know, because love is not, for example, soft. Love sometimes is stern and and it hurts, but love is love. You know what I mean? So the point is, like, learn to look in the mirror. You know, out of all the people that were there, the only person that had a healthy physique, and I'm not saying to show off or anything, it was me, right? I'm the only person that exercises, that runs, takes care of himself, like, and I might, you know, it's not like it guarantees me like a long life, but it's to say like, take care of your body and your mind, because it's the only one you get in this life, right? So you see like people that are fat, out of breath, and I'm talking about my family, the people I was spending time with, right? And I was like, you can fix that. And I saw like people like they want to fix it, but they have no discipline and no plans, and also no way to educate themselves because they don't search for that information. They search for things to entertain themselves, okay? Now, number 11, to make it to the end of this video, is basically poor language and poor self-talk. You know, in my family personally, we had this bad habit that when people ask you how you're doing, you would always say like, I'm not that well, but you know, I'm surviving. Things are not going that well. Life is hard. Life is difficult. It's not fair. And I've learned like via another uncle of mine to just say always like, life is good. Everything's fine. It's better than ever. And you know, I have a lot more than I deserve, and God is good. But overall, I'm making this video and I'm being this harsh and this honest and this stern and not really with any fluff in this video because it's true, right? And when you watch a video like this, I could disguise certain things, make it sound very pretty, but at the end of the day, it just comes down to poor habits make you poor, and not just poor with money, just poor in life and a poor life. So you want to fix those things, and you want to have honesty. You don't want it to be disguised, and you also want urgency because it is super important. But guys, that is it for this video. Comment down below, made it, so I know you made it all the way to the end of the video. And by the way, one of the most powerful things is to know that I went from 215 pounds to 165. To know that I went from not knowing anything to knowing some things. To know I went from having no money to having some money. And it just goes to show you that you can be dumb, you can be lazy, you can be stupid, you can be all these things, and you can still change. So I'm making this video to say like, oh, if you're poor, if you have poor habits, you're done for. No, I identify with a bunch of these traits, okay? I procrastinate. Sometimes I want to take extra risks. Sometimes I want to show off. Sometimes I have all these traits, you know, because I'm also human. I'm a guy, right? So overall, it's not like I don't have them. I have them, but I've learned to kind of like just like, you know, be a better person overall, and that takes time. But it all starts little by little, and effort, honest effort, makes a big difference. That's it, guys, okay? Thanks for watching. As always, like, subscribe, hit the bell so you're notified. Comment down below any questions. Up here is another video. Over here is my face. Subscribe. And as always, long-term team officially out.